I loaned my husband's father $30,000 for home repairs, but he booked luxury Cancun vacation with 3 resort rooms for his new wife's family, so I canceled everything and he lost his marriage because of the lies. My husband Archie, 31M, and I, 28F, have been together for 6 years now. We got married 3 years ago and moved to this city right after. Archie works at a construction company where he manages large commercial projects. The pay is good but the hours are brutal, especially during major builds. I work as an administrative coordinator at a medical office. We share our finances completely and have always been on the same page about money. Archie's father Joaquin, 52M, has been a complicated presence in our lives. Archie's mother passed away from cancer when he was in college. Joaquin took it hard and spent years just barely keeping himself together. He worked as a sales manager at an appliance store but never seemed to have much saved up. About 2 years ago, he met Christina, 48F, at a community event. They hit it off quickly and got married last spring after dating for less than a year. Christina has 2 adult children from her previous marriage, both in their mid-20s. Joaquin owns a house in the suburbs that has been in rough shape for years. The roof leaks when it rains hard. The plumbing makes strange noises. The electrical system is old enough that Archie worries about fire hazards. Archie grew up in that house and it has been clear for a while that major work needed to happen. Joaquin always put it off, saying he would get to it eventually or that he could not afford it right now. Last March, Joaquin called Archie and asked if we could meet for coffee. Archie said yes and we drove out to meet him at a diner near his place. Joaquin looked stressed when we arrived. He ordered coffee and a sandwich but barely touched the food. He explained that the house was falling apart faster than he expected. The inspector who came by said the foundation had cracks that needed immediate attention. The roof was worse than anyone thought. If he did not fix these things soon, the house might become unlivable. Archie asked how much the repairs would cost. Joaquin said he got quotes from contractors and it would be around $30,000. He said he had been saving but did not have nearly enough. Christina had some medical bills from a procedure earlier in the year and they used most of their savings on that. He asked if we could help him out with a loan. He promised he would pay us back over time once he sorted out his finances. Archie and I looked at each other across the table. We both knew Joaquin had a pattern of making poor financial choices. He bought things he did not need. He never budgeted properly. But this felt different. The house was in bad shape, we had seen it ourselves. More importantly, that house was supposed to be Archie's inheritance someday. If it fell into complete disrepair, that inheritance would be worthless. There was also the uncomfortable reality that if Joaquin and Christina became homeless, they might ask to move in with us. Our apartment barely fits the 2 of us. We told Joaquin we would think about it. On the drive home, Archie was quiet. He kept both hands on the wheel and stared straight ahead. When we got back to our place, we sat down and went through our savings. We had been putting money aside for a down payment on a house of our own. It was not quite enough yet, but we were getting close. If we gave Joaquin $30,000, it would set us back by more than a year. Archie said he knew his father probably would not pay us back. I agreed but pointed out that we were really investing in the house, not giving Joaquin a gift. If the house stayed intact, Archie would inherit something valuable. If it crumbled, we would inherit nothing but a piece of land with a condemned building on it. We decided to do it. The next week, we met Joaquin again. We brought a check for $30,000. Joaquin's eyes got wet when he saw it. He thanked us over and over. Archie told him we needed to see receipts for the work and wanted updates as it progressed. Joaquin agreed immediately. He said he already had contractors lined up and they would start within 2 weeks. He showed us a breakdown he had written on a piece of paper. It listed things like foundation repair, roof replacement, and electrical upgrades. The numbers were vague but it seemed plausible enough. Joaquin and Christina moved into a short-term rental while the work was supposedly happening. Joaquin sent Archie text messages every few days with updates. He said the foundation guys started and found more damage than expected. He said the roofers were delayed because of supply chain issues. He said the electrician found code violations that needed fixing. Archie was too busy with his own project to go check on the house in person. His company landed a massive hospital renovation contract and he was working 12 to 14-hour days, sometimes 7 days a week. He would come home exhausted, eat whatever I put in front of him, and collapse into bed. I was working full-time too but my hours were more predictable. I handled all our household tasks during this period. Groceries, laundry, bills, everything. One afternoon in late June, I was going through our credit card statements because I noticed our balance was higher than usual. We had given Joaquin a prepaid card linked to our checking account so he could pay contractors directly. I wanted to see how much had been spent so far. I opened the statement and started scrolling through the charges. I expected to see payments to roofing companies, electricians, plumbing suppliers. Instead, I saw something that made me stop breathing for a moment. There were charges to a luxury resort in Cancun, Mexico. Not just 1 or 2 charges. There were multiple charges over several days. Room bookings, spa services, restaurant meals, excursion packages. The resort was 5-star, the kind of place that charges $500 a night per room. I went back through the charges more carefully. Joaquin had booked 3 rooms. One for himself and Christina. One for Christina's daughter and her boyfriend. One for Christina's son. He had booked all-inclusive meal plans, couples massages, a private yacht tour, and premium airport transfers. The total was over $20,000. I checked the dates. They were supposed to fly out the next morning. In less than 18 hours, they would be at the airport expecting to board a plane to Cancun for a week-long luxury vacation funded entirely by money they told us was for emergency home repairs. I sat there looking at my laptop screen for a long time. Archie was at the construction site. He had sent me a text earlier saying he might not be home until after 10 because they were behind schedule again. We had not taken a vacation in over 2 years. Every time we talked about going somewhere, Archie said he was too busy or we needed to save money. I had suggested a weekend trip to the coast a few months back and he said we should wait until after his big project finished. I called the resort directly. I told them I was calling about a reservation under Joaquin's name. They confirmed the booking. I explained that the credit card used for the booking was mine and that the charges were unauthorized. I said I needed to cancel everything immediately. The representative asked if I was sure because cancellations made within 48 hours of check-in usually carried penalties. I told her I was certain and that I was disputing the charges. She put me on hold. When she came back, she said she had canceled all 3 rooms and the associated services. The charges would be reversed within 5 to 7 business days. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called our credit card company and had the prepaid card blocked. No more charges could go through on it. I made dinner and waited for Archie to get home. He walked in around 10:30. His shirt was covered in dust and he had dark circles under his eyes. He asked what we had for dinner. I told him there was leftover pasta in the fridge. While he was heating it up, I told him what I found and what I did. He stopped with the bowl halfway to the microwave. He set it down on the counter and asked me to show him the statement. We sat at the kitchen table and went through every charge together. Archie did not say anything for a while. He just scrolled through the list, clicking on each transaction to see the details. Then he picked up his phone and opened his messages with Joaquin. He read through the updates Joaquin had been sending. Messages about contractor delays, surprise repair costs, supply issues. All of it was fake. His father had been lying to him for months while working 14-hour days to earn money that Joaquin was using to take his new family on vacation. Archie put his phone face down on the table. He said he was going to bed. He left his dinner sitting on the counter and walked to the bedroom. I heard the shower turn on and run for a long time. My phone started ringing around 6 the next morning. It was Joaquin. I did not answer. He called again. And again. By the time I got out of bed, I had 12 missed calls from him. There were also several text messages. The first few asked me to call him urgently. Then they got more frantic. He said there was a problem at the resort and they would not let them check in. He said their vacation was ruined and he needed me to call the resort to fix it. He said he knew I was the one who canceled everything and I needed to undo it immediately. I made coffee and sat down at the table. Archie was already awake. He had the same flood of messages on his phone. He asked me what I wanted to do. I said I would handle it. I typed out one message to Joaquin and sent it to him. I said we gave him $30,000 for home repairs. He used it to book a luxury vacation for himself and his new family while lying to us about contractors and foundation damage. The funding was finished. We were done helping him financially. Joaquin called immediately. I answered on speakerphone so Archie could hear. Joaquin was yelling. He said we had humiliated him in front of his wife and her children. They were at the airport when they found out the booking was cancelled. Christina was confused and upset. Her kids thought he was a liar. He said it was cruel to cancel everything at the last second instead of talking to him like adults. He said if we had a problem, we should have called him first. Archie took the phone. He said his father had been lying to him for months. He asked about the house repairs. Joaquin went quiet for a moment. Then he said the house was fine. It did not need $30,000 in emergency repairs. He said he might have exaggerated the problems a little because he wanted to take Christina and her kids on a nice vacation, but he knew we would say no if he asked directly. He said it was our fault he had to lie because we would have judged him for wanting to do something special for his new family. Archie told him the conversation was over. Joaquin started yelling again. He said we were jealous of his happiness with Christina. He said we were punishing him for moving on after Archie's mother died. He said we were selfish and controlling with money. Archie hung up on him. Christina called me later that afternoon. She asked if we could meet in person to talk. She said she needed to understand what happened. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown that Saturday. Archie was working again and said he did not want to go anyway. Update 1: I met Christina at the coffee shop on Saturday morning. She was already sitting at a corner table when I arrived. She looked like she had not been sleeping much. She thanked me for coming and asked if I wanted anything to drink. I ordered tea and we sat down across from each other. Christina started by saying she was confused about everything that happened at the airport. She said Joaquin told her the trip was a surprise gift he had been planning for months. He said he saved up money from bonuses at work and wanted to do something special for her and her kids since they all got along so well. She said she thought it was incredibly generous and romantic. She had no idea the money came from us or that it was supposed to be for house repairs. I asked her what Joaquin had told her about his financial situation in general. She said he told her he was doing very well. He said he was a senior manager at the appliance store and made close to 6 figures a year. He said he owned his house outright with no mortgage. He said he had substantial savings and investments. When they got married, he told her they would be very comfortable financially and she would not need to worry about money. Christina said her previous marriage ended badly because of financial issues. Her ex-husband hid debts and spending from her. When they divorced, she was left with almost nothing. She worked hard to rebuild her savings and her credit score. When she met Joaquin, he seemed responsible and stable. He talked about retirement plans and building a future together. She said she never would have married him if she knew he was broke and borrowing money from his son. I showed her the text messages between Archie and Joaquin about the house repairs. She read through them carefully. Her face changed as she went through each message. She saw all the lies about contractors and foundation damage and roof replacements. Then I showed her the credit card statement with all the charges for the resort, the rooms for her kids, the spa packages, everything. Christina put her phone down on the table. She said Joaquin told her he was planning to sell his house soon. He said the housing market was strong and he could get at least $500,000 for it. He said they were going to use that money to buy a bigger place in a nicer neighborhood. He showed her listings for houses they could supposedly afford. She said she was already thinking about how to decorate their future home. I told her the house was not worth $500,000. It was worth maybe $200,000 on a good day, and that was before considering all the repairs it actually needed. I told her Joaquin had been living paycheck to paycheck for years. I told her about the medical bills and the pattern of poor financial decisions. Christina listened to all of it without interrupting. She asked how much we gave Joaquin. I told her $30,000. She closed her eyes for a moment. She asked if we expected to be paid back. I said we did not expect it, but that was not really the point anymore. She nodded and said she understood. Christina told me she needed to go home and talk to Joaquin. She said she felt like their entire marriage was based on lies. She said she would have been fine with a smaller wedding or a cheaper honeymoon if she had known the truth. She said she never asked Joaquin to spend money he did not have. I told her I believed her. We finished our drinks and left. Archie and I talked that night about what to do next. We decided to send Joaquin a formal message making it clear we were cutting off contact. Archie wrote out a long email. He said we were deeply disappointed by the lying and manipulation. He said we would not be providing any more financial help under any circumstances. He said we needed space and would not be responding to calls, texts, or visits. He said the only exception would be a verified medical emergency where we could pay a hospital or doctor directly, but even that would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. We sent the email and then blocked Joaquin's number on both our phones. We thought that would be the end of it for a while. We were wrong. Joaquin started calling from different numbers. When we blocked those, he began showing up at Archie's work site. He would wait in the parking lot until Archie came out. The first time it happened, Joaquin tried to approach him and Archie walked past him without stopping. Joaquin followed him to his truck and stood by the driver's door. Archie told him to move. Joaquin said they needed to talk and that we were being unreasonable. Archie said if he did not step back, Archie would call security. Joaquin eventually moved and Archie drove away. After that happened twice more, Archie talked to his site supervisor and explained the situation. Security was informed that Joaquin was not allowed on the property. The next time he showed up, security escorted him off the premises. He stopped coming to the work site after that. Instead, Joaquin started posting on social media. He wrote vague posts about ungrateful children and how family was supposed to stick together no matter what. He shared articles about adult children who abandoned their elderly parents. Some of his friends commented with supportive messages. A few people we knew saw the posts and reached out to ask what was going on. We did not respond to any of it. Christina called me again about a month after our coffee shop meeting. She said she left Joaquin. She said after our conversation, she went home and confronted him about everything. Joaquin admitted he lied about his finances but said he did it because he loved her and wanted to impress her. He said he was planning to figure out the money situation later. He promised he would sell the house and pay Archie back and make everything right. Christina said she could not stay married to someone who lied about something so fundamental. She said she talked to a lawyer who told her she could pursue an annulment since the marriage was less than a year old and was based on fraud. She filed the paperwork and moved in with her daughter temporarily. Joaquin was served with the annulment papers a week later. Joaquin sent Archie an email from a new address we had not blocked yet. The subject line said urgent and the message was long and rambling. He blamed me for destroying his marriage. He said Christina was the best thing that ever happened to him and I ruined it by being vindictive and interfering in his relationship. He said if I had just minded my own business and let him have his vacation, everything would have been fine. He said I was a terrible person who got satisfaction from making others miserable. Archie deleted the email without finishing it. He blocked the new address. We decided not to engage with Joaquin anymore no matter what he said or did. Update 2: the annulment went through faster than I expected. Christina's lawyer did a good job proving the marriage was based on fraudulent claims about finances. The whole thing was finalized in about 6 weeks. Joaquin did not contest it. I think he knew he did not have a case. After the annulment was official, Joaquin tried a different approach. He stopped posting on social media about ungrateful children. Instead, he started posting about how difficult his life had become. He shared articles about rising housing costs and the struggles of single people over 50. He posted pictures of cheap meals he was making and talked about tightening his belt. It was all designed to make people feel sorry for him. Some of his friends did feel sorry for him. A few reached out to Archie through other family members asking if there was anything that could be done to help Joaquin. Archie politely told them that Joaquin was an adult who made his own choices and would need to handle the consequences. That usually ended the conversation. In early September, Joaquin tried to come to our apartment. We were both home on a Sunday afternoon. There was a knock on the door. Archie looked through the peephole and saw his father standing in the hallway. Archie did not open the door. Joaquin knocked again and said he knew we were home because he saw Archie's truck in the parking lot. He said he just wanted 5 minutes to talk. Archie told him through the door that we had nothing to discuss. Joaquin said he was in serious trouble financially. He said he was behind on his mortgage payments and the bank was threatening foreclosure. He said he needed money for a lawyer to negotiate with the bank. He said if he lost the house, Archie would lose his inheritance. He said we should care about that since we claimed the house was the reason we gave him the $30,000 in the first place. Archie said that was his problem to solve. Joaquin raised his voice. He said we were being cruel and heartless. He said what he did was not that bad and we were overreacting. He said plenty of parents borrow money from their kids and it was normal. Archie told him to leave or we would call the police. Joaquin stood outside the door for another minute before finally walking away. The next morning, Archie called a lawyer to ask about our options if Joaquin kept showing up. The lawyer said we could file for a restraining order if he continued to harass us at home or work. We decided to wait and see if the warning about police was enough to stop him. It was quiet for about 3 weeks. Then Joaquin sent Archie a text from yet another new number. The message said he was being forced to sell the house. The bank gave him 60 days to catch up on payments or they would foreclose. He said he could not catch up because he was too far behind. He said he found a buyer who would pay $210,000. After paying off the mortgage and closing costs, he would have about $40,000 left. He said he planned to use that to rent an apartment and start over. Archie did not respond. Joaquin sent another text an hour later. This one said Archie should think about what it meant that the house was being sold. He said Archie was giving up his inheritance because of pride. He said years from now Archie would regret letting money come between them. Archie blocked the new number. I asked Archie if he was okay with the house being sold. He said yes. He said the house held good memories of his mother but it also represented his father's inability to manage anything responsibly. He said he did not want to inherit something that came with years of deferred maintenance and financial chaos. He said we would build our own life and our own home without any help from Joaquin. The construction project Archie was working on finally finished in late October. His company celebrated with a dinner for the whole team. Archie came home that night looking more relaxed than he had in months. The next big project did not start until January, so he would have nearly 2 months with normal working hours. We started talking about taking time off before the holidays. I suggested we finally take a real vacation. Archie agreed immediately. We looked at flights and hotels. We ended up booking a week in Cancun. The same resort Joaquin had tried to take his family to, actually. It was not intentional spite. The resort had good reviews and reasonable prices for the dates we wanted. But when we realized it was the same place, we laughed about it for the first time in months. We booked it anyway. We left for Cancun in mid-November. The resort was beautiful. We spent our days on the beach and our evenings at nice restaurants. We did not talk about Joaquin the entire time we were there. We talked about what we wanted to do with our savings now that we were not worried about house repairs. We talked about maybe looking for a house of our own in the next year or two. On our last night at the resort, we had dinner at an outdoor restaurant overlooking the ocean. Archie ordered champagne. I asked what we were celebrating. He said we were celebrating being done with other people's drama and focusing on ourselves. We clinked glasses and watched the sunset. Update 3: We got back from Cancun refreshed and ready to move forward with our lives. Archie started his new project in early January. This one had a more reasonable timeline and he was home for dinner most nights. We started looking at houses in our price range. We were not in a rush, but it was exciting to think about owning something of our own. Right before Christmas, I found out I was pregnant. We were not trying, but we were not preventing it either. We had talked about kids and figured it would happen when it happened. I took 3 tests to be sure. All positive. I told Archie on Christmas Eve. He stared at the test for a full minute before he hugged me. We agreed not to tell anyone until after the first trimester. Joaquin found out somehow about the pregnancy. I suspect one of Archie's cousins saw me at a prenatal appointment and mentioned it to someone who mentioned it to Joaquin. In late January, Joaquin sent Archie an email from a new address with the subject line "Congratulations." The email said he heard we were expecting and he wanted to be part of his grandchild's life. He said he understood we were upset about what happened, but surely we could put it behind us for the sake of the baby. He said he had made mistakes, but he was still Archie's father and the baby's grandfather. He said family was more important than money. Archie deleted the email without responding. He said Joaquin had the same opportunity to prioritize family over money and chose differently. He said the time to care about being a grandfather was before lying and stealing from us. We told our friends and Archie's extended family about the pregnancy after the first ultrasound confirmed everything was progressing normally. Most people were excited for us. A few relatives asked if we had told Joaquin. We said we had not and did not plan to. That usually led to an uncomfortable conversation about forgiveness and second chances. We politely but firmly shut those conversations down. Joaquin sold his house in February. He sent one final message to Archie through a relative. The message said the house sold for $215,000. After everything was paid off, he had about $45,000 left. He was renting a one-bedroom apartment across town. He said he hoped Archie was happy that his father was living in a tiny apartment because of his stubbornness. He said the house should have been Archie's someday, but now that opportunity was gone forever. Archie told the relative to tell Joaquin to stop sending messages through other people. He said we had moved on and Joaquin should do the same. The relative said family was complicated and maybe we would feel differently after the baby arrived. Archie said we would not. The baby is due in August. We found a house we liked and made an offer. It needs some cosmetic updates but nothing structural. We close in April. We have been buying furniture and baby supplies. We painted the nursery last weekend. Archie picked a light green color. We hung shelves and assembled a crib. It is starting to feel real. I do not think about Joaquin much anymore. Sometimes I wonder if he tells people his version of what happened. I imagine he paints himself as the victim of ungrateful children who cut him off over a misunderstanding. I imagine his friends nod sympathetically and agree that young people these days do not understand family loyalty. It does not matter. We know what happened. We know what choices he made. That is enough. Archie and I talk sometimes about whether we will ever speak to Joaquin again. Archie says he does not see a reason to. He says his father had dozens of opportunities to be honest, to apologize, to take responsibility. He chose not to. I agree with him. Some bridges burn because someone sets them on fire. This is one of those bridges. We are focused on the life we are building together. We have jobs we can tolerate and a house we will own and a baby on the way. We take walks in the evenings and make plans for the nursery and argue about baby names. We are okay. We are better than okay. We are exactly where we need to be. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I caught my wife with her trainer on our anniversary. She left us without looking back. Now she shows up drunk at my house. I demand to see my children. I had to call the police while my kids hid in the closet. I never thought I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am. 6 months ago, I, 42M, came home early from work to surprise my wife Janet, 39F, for our anniversary. We'd been married for 14 years, with 2 wonderful kids, Ethan, 11M, and Grace, 8F. What I witnessed that day in our bedroom turned my world upside down and shattered everything I thought I knew about our marriage. I walked into our house at 2 p.m., carrying flowers and a small gift box with a necklace I'd picked out months ago. The house was quiet, which wasn't unusual since the kids were at school. I noticed Janet's car in the driveway and figured she was upstairs. As I climbed the stairs, I heard strange noises coming from our bedroom. I opened the door and froze. There was my wife in our bed with another man. The flowers dropped from my hand. Time seemed to stop. The man, who I later learned was Greg, 34M, her personal trainer from the gym, scrambled to grab his clothes and rushed past me without making eye contact. Janet just sat there, wrapped in our sheets, staring at me with a cold, detached expression I'd never seen before. When I finally found my voice, Janet didn't even try to deny anything. She told me she'd been seeing Greg for almost 10 months. Then she said something that hit me like a physical blow. She hadn't loved me for years. She claimed she'd been unhappy, felt neglected, and that Greg understood her in ways I never had. Within an hour, Janet had packed a bag and left our home. She said she was moving in with Greg and that she needed space to figure things out. There was no apology, no tears, just a businesslike exit as though she were leaving for a work trip, not abandoning her family. I stood in our bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of what I thought was a happy marriage, trying to process what had just happened. How would I tell our children that their mother had left? How would we move forward? Janet and I met during my final year of college. She was a sophomore with bright eyes and an infectious laugh that caught my attention immediately. We both claimed it was love at first sight. After my graduation, we maintained a long-distance relationship for 2 years until she finished her degree. We married 3 months after her graduation. The first decade of our marriage seemed perfect. I focused on building my career as a civil engineer, while Janet embraced being a stay-at-home mom after Ethan was born. Our life consisted of soccer practices, neighborhood cookouts, and annual trips to the beach. Janet excelled at motherhood, organizing play dates, maintaining our home, and creating wonderful memories for our children. I believed we had built something truly special. Looking back, I now see signs I missed. About 4 years ago, Janet started mentioning feelings of restlessness. She talked about returning to work or taking up new hobbies, but never followed through. I encouraged her ideas but was often preoccupied with a major highway project that demanded long hours. I assumed her dissatisfaction would pass. 3 years ago, Janet's father passed away suddenly from a heart attack. She was devastated and fell into a depression that lasted months. I tried to support her, but I was in the middle of the most demanding phase of my project, often working 12-hour days. I thought giving her space was what she needed, but now I realize I was avoiding difficult conversations and emotions. After that period, Janet seemed to bounce back. She joined a gym, started meeting new friends, and appeared happier. I was relieved to see her energy return. What I didn't realize was that this shift marked the beginning of the end for us. About 8 months before I discovered the affair, Janet became increasingly distant. She was constantly on her phone, spent more nights out, and showed less interest in family activities. When I tried to talk to her about these changes, she either dismissed my concerns or started arguments that left me feeling like I was the problem. The day Janet left, I had to pick up Ethan and Grace from school and explain that their mother wouldn't be home. I tried to be honest without sharing the painful details. Their initial confusion quickly turned to heartbreak. Ethan stared blankly at the wall, while Grace burst into tears, asking if she had done something wrong. That night, I held both my children as they cried themselves to sleep, unable to understand why their mother had abandoned them. The weeks following Janet's departure were a blur. I took a leave of absence from work to focus on establishing a new routine for the children. I arranged counseling sessions, met with their teachers to inform them of our situation, and tried to maintain some sense of normalcy. Meanwhile, Janet moved directly into Greg's apartment and barely contacted the kids. She posted photos of her new life on social media, smiling with Greg at restaurants and concerts, acting as though her family had never existed. 3 months after leaving, Janet sent a text saying she wanted to see the kids. I refused. In my view, she had forfeited her right to be their mother when she walked out on them without looking back. She threatened legal action for custody rights, but I called her bluff, certain that her abandonment would weaken any custody claim. Since then, Janet has contacted me repeatedly about seeing the children. She claims she's changed, made a terrible mistake, and wants to explain herself to Ethan and Grace. I don't believe her. Our kids have suffered enough, and I fear letting Janet back into their lives would only reopen wounds that are slowly beginning to heal. Janet has enlisted her parents and several mutual friends to pressure me. They call me cruel for keeping the children from their mother, ignoring the fact that she walked away from them willingly. Her parents even threatened to sue for grandparents' rights. The children haven't asked to see Janet. Ethan has become angry and withdrawn, lashing out at school and bringing home failing grades. Grace has developed anxiety, waking with nightmares and constantly asking if I will leave her too. Watching their suffering breaks my heart every day. I worry about how my decisions will affect them long term. Am I letting my anger toward Janet cloud my judgment? Will Ethan and Grace resent me years from now if I continue to keep their mother away? What if I allow Janet back into their lives and she hurts them again? She's already missed Ethan's basketball tournament and Grace's dance recital, showing how unreliable she can be. Another concern is Greg's influence. From what I've learned, he has an unstable employment history and failed relationships. I worry about his impact on my children during any potential visitation. Janet's own childhood may explain some of her behavior. Her father was emotionally distant, and she had a complicated relationship with her mother. But understanding the roots of her actions doesn't excuse the pain she's caused. For now, I've decided to maintain my position against visitation. The children need stability and time to heal. I've been second-guessing this decision constantly, which is why I'm turning to Reddit for perspectives from others who might have faced similar situations. Update 1 First, I want to thank everyone for the support and advice on my original post. After reading your comments, I decided to take a different approach and talk directly with Ethan and Grace about seeing their mother. I sat them down after dinner one evening and explained that Janet had been asking to see them. I tried to keep my tone neutral, telling them they could take time to think about it and that whatever they decided was okay. Ethan's response was immediate and firm. He said he didn't want to see his mother. When I asked why, he mentioned feeling abandoned and betrayed. He said he wasn't ready to face her yet. Grace's reaction was more conflicted. She admitted missing her mother but was afraid Janet would disappear again. She asked for time to think about it. I relayed this information to Janet, explaining that the kids weren't ready yet but that I'd keep communication open. She wasn't happy but seemed to accept their decision temporarily. Shortly after this conversation, I received a call from Ethan's school. He had gotten into a fight after another student made comments about his mom who ran away. In our small town, word spreads quickly, and unfortunately, the children were facing the fallout of Janet's choices. Ethan was suspended for 3 days. When we got home, something in him broke. He sobbed, admitting he'd been having nightmares about abandonment and lived in fear that I would leave too. This incident made me realize our children needed more support than I could provide alone. I began researching family counseling options. Last week, another incident escalated the situation. Janet showed up unannounced at Ethan's soccer game. When Ethan spotted her in the stands, he froze on the field and refused to continue playing. I approached Janet and asked her to leave, explaining that her surprise appearance was distressing Ethan. Instead of understanding, Janet created a scene. She yelled about me keeping the children from her, embarrassing Ethan in front of his teammates and other parents. The coach had to escort Ethan to the locker room while I dealt with Janet. After this incident, I contacted a lawyer about establishing a formal custody agreement to prevent similar situations in the future. Janet's parents continue to threaten legal action for grandparents' rights. My lawyer advised that their case would likely be weak in our state, but fighting it could still be expensive and drawn out. Through a mutual friend, I learned that Janet and Greg's relationship is struggling. Apparently, Greg didn't anticipate the complications of dating someone with children. The friend mentioned that Greg has been pressuring Janet to cut ties with Ethan and Grace entirely for a fresh start. I wasn't surprised but felt disgusted by the possibility that Janet might consider such a request. Meanwhile, Ethan and Grace continue to struggle. Ethan's grades have declined significantly, and he's pulled away from friends he's had for years. I've been working with his teachers to develop a support plan. Grace has developed severe separation anxiety. Last weekend, she had a sleepover at her friend's house but called me at midnight, crying and begging to come home. Balancing work, household responsibilities, and the emotional needs of two traumatized children has left me exhausted. Every day, I question whether I'm making the right decisions. My current plan is to pursue family counseling and establish clear boundaries through a formal custody agreement. I'm taking each day as it comes, focusing on helping Ethan and Grace feel secure again. The road ahead seems long, but their well-being remains my priority. Update 2: We've been attending family counseling for about 6 weeks now. The sessions have been helpful but emotionally draining as we work through layers of hurt and confusion. During our third session, Grace revealed something that shocked me. She admitted she'd been secretly messaging Janet daily for weeks using a phone Janet had given her without my knowledge or consent. The therapist helped Grace understand why this secrecy wasn't healthy and emphasized the importance of honesty. After the session, I confronted Janet about undermining my parenting by giving our 8-year-old a secret phone. The conversation quickly escalated. Janet accused me of parental alienation, while I pointed out how her sneaky behavior was harmful to Grace's recovery. The argument devolved into rehashing our marriage problems, with Janet blaming my work schedule for driving her to the affair. I acknowledged I wasn't perfect but reminded her that nothing justified her abandonment of our children. This incident convinced me we needed a formal structure. Working with lawyers and our family therapist, we began developing a custody and visitation plan. The process has been tense with slow progress. The proposed arrangement starts with supervised visits once a month, with potential for gradual increases to unsupervised time if those visits go well. The plan accounts for both children's different comfort levels. Ethan remains resistant to seeing Janet, and we've agreed not to force him. Grace has expressed cautious willingness to try supervised visits. Last week, I received news that Greg ended his relationship with Janet. According to mutual friends, he found the prospect of being a stepfather overwhelming once he realized Janet was serious about reconnecting with the children. Janet is reportedly struggling with the breakup, relying heavily on her parents for support, and drinking more than usual. I felt conflicted upon hearing this news. Part of me thought it served Janet right after what she did to our family. Another part recognized that her instability could further complicate our co-parenting efforts. I've tried to maintain focus on the children rather than Janet's personal problems. Both children continue to exhibit concerning behaviors. Ethan had another incident at school where he argued with a teacher and walked out of class. When we discussed it later, he admitted to constant worry about my safety and Grace's well-being. He's taken on an inappropriate protector role that his counselor is helping him address. Grace's nightmares about Janet have returned. Several times a week, she wakes up crying. Holding her during these episodes, I realize there's a maternal void I simply cannot fill, despite my best efforts. Despite all the challenges, we're making a plan to move forward. I'm still uncertain about many aspects of the situation, but I remain committed to putting the children first. I hope that time and continued counseling will eventually lead to healing for Ethan and Grace. Update 3: The supervised visits with Janet and Grace began about 2 months ago. At first, Grace was excited to see her mother. Unfortunately, the initial promise of these visits quickly deteriorated. During the visits, Janet made extravagant promises she didn't keep, brought expensive gifts clearly meant to buy Grace's affection, and repeatedly spoke negatively about me. After each visit, Grace became an emotional wreck, confused and upset for days afterward. Meanwhile, Ethan maintained his refusal to see Janet, causing additional tension. Janet continued to claim I was alienating him from her, despite the therapist's explanation that Ethan's feelings were his own. Last week, Ethan overheard an argument between Janet and me about his refusal to attend visits. After Janet left, Ethan punched a hole in his bedroom wall, something completely out of character for him. Through tears, he expressed intense anger toward Janet and declared he never wanted to see her again. The situation reached a breaking point 3 days ago when Janet appeared at our house completely intoxicated. She demanded to see the children, yelling and causing a scene in our front yard. When I refused to let her in, she became belligerent and attempted to force her way into the house. I had no choice but to call the police to have her removed. Ethan and Grace witnessed the beginning of this incident before I directed them to hide in the upstairs closet. They remained there, terrified, until the police escorted Janet away. After the officers left, Grace had a panic attack, and Ethan went completely silent for hours. Following this dangerous incident, I suspended all visitations indefinitely and instructed my lawyer to file for full custody with no visitation rights for Janet. This wasn't the outcome I had hoped for, but Janet's erratic behavior has proven unsafe for the children. Janet has threatened to fight the custody modification, potentially leading to a difficult court battle. However, the police report from the incident strengthens my case significantly. The children's conditions have worsened. Ethan has withdrawn completely, and his grades have plummeted. His counselor has expressed concern about possible depression. Grace now experiences frequent panic attacks and severe separation anxiety, crying daily at school drop-off and begging me not to leave. These past months have been the most challenging of my life. I'm exhausted and heartbroken watching my children suffer, but I believe I have no choice but to cut Janet out completely for now. Perhaps someday, if she gets the help she needs, she might be capable of a healthy relationship with Ethan and Grace. For the immediate future, my focus remains on protecting them and helping them heal from the trauma they've endured. The road ahead is long, but with continued counseling and stability, I hope my children will eventually find peace.